Thank you again for those that have joined. There are again some familiar names in that list, so it's nice to see that you are all coming back to this, so you are finding it useful. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on an introduction to extensions and events, which were two of the biggest things that were introduced in Dynamics NAV 2016. My name is Nick Macon, for those that don't know, and if you have any questions throughout, you can always use the comment section on the right hand side, so the question section on the right hand side. I'll get to them at the end, or you can feel free to email us using that email address at any point. You can email us any question at all, whether it's about this session, whether it's about another session, or anything at all about NAV, and we promise to reply to it, no matter how daft it is. So feel free to reply to us or get in touch with us on that email address. So, just as a little reminder, this is actually our third knowledge hour so far, and it seems like they've gone down quite well so far. So I hope you guys are getting some value from them. We have done previously an introduction to Dynamics NAV 2016 and an introduction to standard workflow that was introduced in Dynamics NAV 2016 as well. So this is the third one we've done, and again, we've also put the recording links on all of these on YouTube. So after some feedback that we took on board from one of our sessions, we've started to put the recordings of these straight onto our YouTube channel as well. So feel free to go back to this page and to view the recording link of it on any you may have missed out on. That will just take you to YouTube, so you don't have to worry about signing in or anything like that. Just as a reminder, we do these on a fortnightly basis, and we've just put the next batch of 3 on our website. So on the 15th of April, we're going to be doing a Finance 101 session. We're going to be doing a Finance 101 session on the 15th of April. And obviously the finance section is a huge module in Dynamics NAV. So it's going to do a high level introduction to finance, maybe for those people that don't know too much about it, or people that may be new to the area, or just want to find out one or two little bits. We're going to do a Finance 101. We're also going to be doing further finance sessions first, but let's just cover the basics first. On the 29th of April, we're going to be doing a JET 101. So for those that have or haven't seen JET reports, it's probably one of our favourite reporting tools that NAV people, and it does work really nicely. So we're going to be doing a knowledge hour just on JET reports and what it can do for you on the 29th of April. For those that may be interested in reporting as well, we've got 2 free seminar days coming up in April. So if you go to our website, you should see a link for the Season of Knowledge. We're going to be doing these in April, May and June on different subjects. Reporting in April, mobility in May, and enabling your business in June. So hopefully feel free to take a look at that. You can join us on one of those sessions either in Newbury or Manchester, but we'll obviously be recording those sessions to go into our YouTube channel as well. And again, we're going to be doing an introduction to enablement, just showing off our product range in the 13th of May. Again, that's a long way down the line yet. Hopefully you guys will get on a newsletter now as well, just keeping you up to date. But if you're not, feel free to email us and we can make sure we add it to that list, or you can use the form that you can find on the Knowledge Hours page on our website. So that's all our boring admin stuff taken care of for the time being. And for today's agenda, first off, I've just rejigged this a little bit before I jumped on. We're actually going to talk about events first. So we're going to introduce events. I want to go through a few examples of events in Dynamics NAV 2016. I'm going to run through a bit of PowerPoint first, just to introduce some of the main concepts around events, what they can do, what they can't do, why you should use them, and why they are really nice. We'll then show a few examples in NAV, just so you guys have a bit of an understanding, but we're going to keep this very high level, just so you've got the understanding of what they can do. We'll no doubt definitely have another 1 hour session just focused on events to delve further into them. So I hope that sounds okay. In the second half, we're going to have a little look at extensions again. We'll do a similar thing. We'll run through a PowerPoint, introduce the concept, and then we'll just have a look at maybe how one or two sit in our database and how we can apply them, uninstall them, and stuff like that. So I hope that sounds okay. Obviously, at the end, we'll always have time for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can feel free to write them in the question section, or if we don't have time for any questions, I'll make sure to follow them up at the end of this knowledge hour, as always. I hope that sounds okay. So, just as a little introduction, obviously I've changed this slightly, so it was only 10 minutes ago I decided to do events first, but extensions, essentially, if you wanted to know what they are in one line, they enable you to modify Dynamics NAV without altering the source objects. And that's a really, really interesting concept in 2016. Again, just to re-emphasize, both of these were introduced in Dynamics NAV 2016. So these have been big things that have been introduced to the platform in one release. So again, it's been a big change, but this is what extensions are. They'll enable you to essentially add a set of customizations onto a deployment of nav. We'll go through this and we'll make it a lot more clearer. But again, it does this without modifying the source objects in the database that you install them on. I'll show you an example of this later as well, so it will be clear, but that's what extensions are in a one-liner. Events are really, really exciting. They allow us developer folk to separate custom functionality away from the standard business logic that Microsoft provide out of the box, which is just great, honestly, it really is nice. So where Microsoft have code in, for example, tables and code units and stuff like that, we can separate code that we would have wrote in that code unit or table and do it elsewhere, hence saving a modification to an object, meaning that overall, going forward in the future, the plan is that nav systems will be a lot easier to upgrade and maintain going forward. One of the main reasons why it will be easier to upgrade is the fact that there won't be these huge modifications to these standard objects. For example, when you want to trigger a message to say this, or validation on a number or something like that, we can do all this, any bespoke functionality in code units, in bespoke code units that don't touch the standard ones. Which again, you're probably asking yourself why, but don't worry, we'll come to all that. But again, it makes it a huge, huge thing that we mean that nav is just going to be a lot more maintainable going forward, which is a really nice thing that Microsoft have done there. So we tip our hats off to them. Just as a little warning for those, this will get a bit geeky. So if you just wanted to know what events and extensions were, you can just leave at this point. I won't be too disheartened. If you just wanted a high level, then that's what we'll do today. We're just going to keep it basic today, but it is going to get a little bit geeky. We're going to talk about code units, about PowerShell, stuff like that. It's going to be high level, so we're not going to delve into into too much detail, but it's going to be fairly technical today, so just a warning. And also for those that don't know, you can, again, if you go to our website /ebook, you can download our Ultimate Guide to Dynamics NAV. In there, we've actually got an article that refers to NAV apps. So if you may already have a copy of our magazine in hard copy, or may have already downloaded it. If you see a article referring to NAV apps, these are extensions. The reason why we've called them NAV apps is because the magazine went to print prior to 2016 being officially released. Unfortunately, Microsoft had a change of heart with the name, so again we just had to make sure that you guys are aware of that. But again, we've got articles for extensions, events, and just anything really about NAV, whether 2016 standard functionality or enablement functionality in that. So if you do want a copy, you can go ahead and download it there. If you prefer a paper copy, we've got lots of copies, so feel free to drop us an email or write a question here, and we'll be more than happy to send one over to you. So, just to get started, what are events? So events, again, something we've already said, it was something that was introduced in 2016 that enables us to separate standard code, the code that Microsoft provide, with our code. They are probably one of the biggest changes that Microsoft have made to the platform in a long time, and they do offer a huge, huge benefit. Essentially, us developers can separate our code from the standard business logic, as some people call it. It really is a big change. It means that wherever we've modified objects in the past to maybe perform new functions or do different things than the standard code does, we can now write our code in separate objects, in new objects that don't touch the standard objects, and they'll be fired in the right places. We'll come to how in a minute, but it means that it makes it a lot more easy to upgrade going forward. Hopefully it'll make more sense going forward, so I'll just touch wood. Well, again, yeah, it does make the whole application easy to upgrade and maintain. It means that the database going forward going to be a lot cleaner as well, which is going to be a huge thing for developers, for customers having clean databases and wanting to be upgraded, etc. Especially because with 2016, 2015, etc., Microsoft release cumulative updates every month. So for example, with Dynamics NAV 2016, they've already released cumulative update 5. So it means that making sure people are up to date on the latest version of the platform, it's a lot easier to do so because we won't have all these changes to standard objects. So again, that's one big advantage. People can keep up to date with the latest version a lot easier using events and extensions in 2016. One of the really nice things we're able to say, for those that may have joined us at our user day, is that our enablement product, which is certified for Microsoft Dynamics product, we're able to say that no object was harmed in the making of the product, which was really nice. It was the fact that we're able to take any modifications from standard objects and do the same functionality elsewhere, which is really nice. It means that our enablement product, which does offer a lot of functionality, doesn't actually impact on the standard database at all, which is very nice to say. And it's powerful. It means, that means how events are so powerful. They can deliver subsets of technology and functionality like that and not modify a standard database. So I hope that will make sense up to now. For those that may have been wondering, why is this even a big deal? Maybe you're not too technical, you may not have had too much insight to events. This is an example of a modification prior to 2016. So this could be a 2015, 2013, 2009, could be any version of NAV previously. A modification was made to a standard code unit. So we've got a code unit there, which was purchase postcode unit. And if we wanted to do something that was not a standard function, we'd have to go into the code unit, find out where we want our code to be triggered, and we'd have to write something. So obviously in this case, if today equals Friday and it's a sunny day, whatever that variable is, then we'll do our code there, and we've modified that object. That means that there's been something added to that code unit, which means that if we wanted to upgrade this code unit going forward, maybe Microsoft adds something to this code unit in 2 months' time, we'd have to do a text merge to make sure our modification is not lost when we upgrade the object. So again, it just means that there's a little bit more work in maintaining this object and making sure that's up to date. So that's pre-2016, so I hope that makes sense up to now. But with 2016 introduced, we're able to do something like this. So again, we've got a code unit which is in the 50,000 range. So this is a code unit that Microsoft, that it's a bespoke code unit that Microsoft don't use, so we can develop in it. And here we are subscribing to that purchase header record. So we can do the exact same thing that we've done previously, but in a different place. And we are, think of the event subscribers as listening, but we are just listening for that event to happen, and then we will do our modification. So if it today equals Friday and it's a sunny day, we'll do our code here instead. That just means that that posting routine we just saw in the previous slide is not amended, yet our functionality is still carried out. We've still done the same check. Again, it's a really nice thing. So hopefully this starts to make a little bit of sense up to now. So essentially how they work. They were made up of 3 things mainly. First off, you've got an event publisher. So you've got a function in CAL, which can be of 2 types, business or integration. And I'll show you an example of these functions later, so don't worry too much for now. But these are typically the functions that are published in a code unit, ready for something to happen, or not necessarily in the code unit, but in an object, waiting for something to happen. there are two different types. So there are business publishers. These publishers are for those events that typically should not be modified. So once you've created these event publishers of type business, they shouldn't be changed a lot. They should be they shouldn't be updated once a month. They should be finished. They should be used for integration to web services or whatever, but they should not be changed too often by design. Integration, however, are designed to be changed whenever you want to make change to them. So when you are developing your own event and playing with events and exploring events, I'd definitely try integration. Interestingly, with the majority of the code units that Microsoft have provided out of the box, and we'll take a look at one or two of them, the vast majority are integration code units. So that's just one thing to be aware of. Even Microsoft aren't using business publishers at the moment. If you did want to find out as well, there are a list of the events publishers on MSDN, so you can find out what events are provided out of the box. But again, you can understand that with every cumulative update, more events are being put onto the system. And we'll have a look at where these are put in the system as well. The second thing is actually the declaration of the event itself. So at the bottom we'll have a look at all the event publishers, but then we'll have lines of code which are calling these events. So again, once these events are being called, what happens is that NAV will then call that event, and then any code unit, any functions that are subscribing to these event publishers will then be triggered. So this all makes sense in a minute, but again, we need, where we've got event publishers, they will not be called unless we have lines of code calling these events, declaring them. So I hope that kind of makes a lot of sense, but we'll definitely take a look in a sec. Subscribers are the fun bit. This is where we can subscribe to an event and place our code, which will be fired. We'll listen to the triggers here, and whether the event publisher is fired, our subscriber will be called. So we can't have a control of what subscribers are. As soon as you're subscribing to that event publisher, as soon as that event publisher is triggered, this subscribing code function will be triggered. So there's no kind of dependency on only trigger if this or that at the moment. Obviously your code will do that, but not the event itself. If that makes sense? In the development environment, you can actually go to debug and event subscriptions to view a list of them. I'll show you that in a sec as well, but again, that's quite nice. And at this point in time, we're just going to have a little run through events in Dynamics NAV to make sure it's a little bit clearer. So I'm just going to jump into my application here, and I've got 3 code units that I just want to show you. I've got a standard code unit, which is the release sales document code unit, and I've got 2 bespoke code units I've put together here just to save a little bit of time. So just to get started, I'm going to design this one here. And you can see here that this is a standard code unit, so it hasn't been modified at all. You may have noticed before. It's only been modified when I've put my version on it, but again, apart from that, it hasn't been modified. It's just out of the box. And you can see that in the code unit here, we are calling these events. So all these lines here are events in the system. We can have a look at these in a sec. And we do have one here that we will take a look at on after release sales documents. So in our slide before, when we were declaring our event, this is an example of that. So we have an event publisher in this code unit. Further down, I'll show you that in a sec. And this is where we are calling that event. So we're saying every time, when we get to this point, we will publish that event, and any code unit, any event that are subscribing to it will be fired. So again, that's where we call the event. We can put these lines of code wherever we want if you want to create our own. And Microsoft have done a really nice job of just putting some all over the place. So there are lots of declarations of events they provided out of the box all over. If you want to have a look at the events, we can go to View, Globals, Functions, and again, these are the ones we were looking at before. So we've got that on after release sales documents there. We can have a look at the properties of it, and again, you can see what it is. You can see that it is, the only difference is that it's of event type publisher. So again, we can see whether it's a publisher, whether it's a subscriber, or whether it's not event at all. So if this is just a normal function, which obviously the vast majority of functions in Dynamics NAV are, the events will be no. As soon as you say subscribe, the event type, the try function, etc. will then be displayed, so you can set these additional settings. Again, we are publishing in this case, and then we've got this event type field here, and we can say whether it's business or integration. Again, this is a Microsoft one, and just often the chance this is an integration one, so something that you can customize if you want to. But you may notice that the vast majority of events that Microsoft have provided are actually integration events. So there's the event, there's the definition of it, and then if we just go to right click, go to the definition, here we have our event. So it's an integration event, and it's on after release sales documents, and that's what we'll have a look at there. So at this point in time, we've put a trigger, so whenever we release a sales document, this will be called in this case, whenever we get to that point in time. So going to the first of our bespoke code units, because now we've got that event, we've got that on after release sales documents, I want to do something now, so I'm going to subscribe to that code unit, and this is what essentially this is. So if I just go to my globals again, if I go to my functions, I've got a validate sales line function. If I go into that, this is, again, it's an event because it's not set to no, and it's a type subscribe this time. So we're not saying publisher, we're saying, okay, I want to subscribe or listen to that event. And at this point in time, we can specify what event we want to listen to. Here, I've specified the code unit that we are listening to. So the code unit 414, we just looked at then. I'm going to say listen to that code unit, and you can drill down into there and specify listen to this event in the code unit. So every time that event subscriber is called, every time that event publisher is called in code, we can subscribe to it and do our functionality. So hopefully this is starting to piece together and make sense now. And at this point in time, I've just put a small example here. So if the sales line number contains 1,000, then message back that item is on promotion. So let's just have a look at that. I'm not going to save changes to it. I'm just going to go into NAV 2016 here. I'm just going to go into a sales order. Going to create a new sales order, and then I'm just going to quickly specify customer number. They'll know that'll be over the credit limit, just because it's a demo database, and then I'll specify where number is 1,000. Then what I need to do now, because we've subscribed to the release of this code unit, I need to actually release this record, and there we go. That's our first event that's been obviously displayed. So again, that's really nice, the fact that we can, without changing standard objects, obviously I didn't change that code unit before, the only reason it's modified because I put a version in it to identify it. But again, without changing standard functionality, we can do functionality in NAV without modifying standard objects. Really, really nice. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, that's nice, but at the same time, there was a line of code there saying on after release sales documents, and what would I do if there wasn't that code there? And that's a good point. Just to reinforce that, in this release sales document, I had subscribed to an event here. So again, what do we do when we don't have these lines of code, these events being declared in the system? What do we do when Microsoft haven't provided these for us? You can obviously create your own event publishers and put these lines of code in yourself. Again, like that's only a small modification to an object, so moving that modification to another version or merging it won't be as big of a modification or big of a work than doing a whole text merge of the whole function. So again, this is a very small function. If you wanted to create your own event publishers and declarations in an object, that'd be absolutely fine, be a lot more maintainable. But if you want to use, but on the platform as a whole, Microsoft have done a really, really nice job of just providing a whole lot of events that we can use in the system. So I'm just going to show you an example of that, if that's okay. So I've got my promo event management version 2. I'm just going to go into that. And this might look a little bit different here now. So you can see here that my variable is actually pointing to a record, and it's actually pointing to a field. And I'll have a look and I'll show you where that's defined here. So if I just go to view globals, I've got my promo items function, and here this looks slightly differently. So again, it's still an event subscriber, but instead of publishing to the code unit 414, we're actually subscribing to the table. So we're going to say we're going to listen to the table, and then we're going to listen onto this field. So you can listen to any field you want in nav. So in this case, we'll listen to the number field, yeah. And then on that number field, Microsoft have published a whole lot of events on these fields in nav, which again is really nice. So we can listen to on after insert, on after modify, all of these on this field. Again, this is a standard table in nav, so it's really nice the fact that they've put these events in there on these fields. It means that we can do a whole load of functionality without creating our own event publishers and declaring them in nav as well. So again, it's really nice the fact that Microsoft have provided these out of the box. So hopefully that makes sense, the fact that we are subscribing or listening. Listening is quite an easy way to think of it. We're listening to something to happen on the number field in the sales line table. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just going back. I'm doing a similar thing here. I'm just saying when it's of type item and when the record number is equal to 1001. In this case, we want to say item is on promotion instead. Okay, that should make sense. But this should be on validated the number and not on release. So let's just go back to nav, press new. So type item, and then there we go. Our event is fired. So again, that's just a different way you can call an event. So hopefully that should make sense. If you wanted to use, you can subscribe to events from code units, from tables, from all over the system. Hopefully that should make a little bit of sense how events work in Dynamics NAV 2016. We won't spend too much time on events today, because I've obviously got to go through extensions as well. But we'll no doubt do a full hour on all the different types of events, why they are so powerful again in a future knowledge hour. So hopefully that makes sense up to now. So just jumping back to PowerPoint, let's talk about how you implement your own. So again, if you want to, you can obviously publish that event. So you'd go into a table or code unit and you'd create an event of publisher and you'd give it a name. You'd then write a line of code, which we saw in the code unit 414, which is calling the event. And then in your own bespoke code unit, you can then subscribe to that event wherever you've put it. So again, hopefully that makes sense. But if you wanted to create your own, you can do so, and you can still modify those standard objects, which means that you're making much less modifications to those standard objects than if you were, for example, doing the whole modification in, an older version of nav where they don't have events. You'd be modifying the whole code unit, or put 2 or 3 functions there. So hopefully that makes sense up to now. But again, if you do have any questions at any stage, feel free to pop them in the question box or email them in. So that's one half of today done. Now let's quickly introduce the concept of extensions too. So extensions allow you to modify the system without directly affecting the source objects in the database, which again, it's a very, very interesting concept. And it was a huge release in 2016. Just to help you guys understand, an example could be adding a whole bunch of fields to pages without modifying the pages themselves. Bear with me, and I'll put an example up just to help you explain. If you're wondering how an extension can customize the system without modifying the objects, in simplest terms, they are essentially the runtime application of the objects themselves. When you publish an extension to a Dynamics NAV deployment, it will compile the objects that are stored in that database against the objects that you package as an extension, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you can then actually specify and install these for a particular service, for a single service deployment, or a particular tenant. So you can install and publish an extension for a particular tenant, which is a huge thing actually. That just means that when you run the object, you'll get the changes that have been published in an extension, which hopefully that should make a lot of sense. So again, roughly based on deltas. So deltas are a definition of the difference between a standard object or base object and a altered base. We'll have a look at the difference between these and explain these in a sec. One of the biggest advantages with extensions is that you can deploy them in a multi-tenanted environment. So you can have multiple tenants sharing objects, but having different modifications to their objects for their tenants, which is a huge thing actually, but they do also work fine in a single tenanted deployment. Hopefully that makes sense. For those that don't know, extensions are packaged, installed, and published using Windows PowerShell. We'll have a quick look at PowerShell in a sec for those that don't know. It's a really nice tool, but again, at this version of extensions, we do administer them using PowerShell. There are only pretty much two requirements that you need for extensions. The main one being a development environment, obviously to do the development in before you create your deltas, and then a file directory that you will use to put your deltas in and to create your NavX packages or extensions that we'll look at in a minute. The only other requirement you'll need is probably a little bit of coffee, but I promise you they aren't that difficult to make. We'll have a look at that. So, with extensions, again, you've got to do a few things. You've got to develop what you want to be in your extension. You then use PowerShell to create a delta and essentially create an extension. We'll quickly run through this in a minute, but just in that bottom diagram, that should help you understand how an extension is put together. Essentially, you need a base. So the base is a combination of, the standard object. So the object or objects, if the extension is containing multiple objects, before the modification was made. So what you do is you take your base and you use PowerShell to export it as text files. You then go into the Dynamics NAV development environment, the CAL development environment, and you do your developments there. So you add fields to pages and stuff like that, and change properties. And then that gives you a modified base, which again is the object with the changes there. Once you've got that, you then create you export that again. So you export that. So you've got two text files, which are a base and modified base. You can then use PowerShell to compare the difference and create a delta. Once you've got that delta, you can then use a few more PowerShell commandlets to create a manifest and a NavX package, and they're extension specific. So the manifest is actually the descriptive meaning of the extension. So it could be, for example, enhanced information from the nav people, workflow extension about the nav people. It's how you describe your extension, and it also contains any prerequisites that you guys need, the version of it, etc. And then you package that with the NavX, which is the objects included in it, and then you can create your extension. But I'll show you an example of that a little later on as well. So just to kind of briefly introduce PowerShell for those that don't know, Windows PowerShell was actually introduced with Dynamics NAV 2013, and it's a scripting tool that looks like this that we can use to administer Dynamics NAV. So it is really useful for administering NAV. One really nice thing is that with every release of Dynamics NAV, Microsoft are providing more commandlets or CMDlets with it each time. So you can see that CMDlet down in the diagram. They are releasing more of these commands every time. And these commands can let you do lots of things in Dynamics NAV. A few examples is that you can manage users using PowerShell. You can create and copy companies. You can import, export, compile objects. You can create, modify, and get information from server instances. You can do lots and lots of things that are really helpful in administering Dynamics NAV that may be a little bit quicker. I only know basic PowerShell, but it really has saved me a lot of time in the past when I've had to do things that would have took me a long time otherwise. One thing is that you should never use PowerShell to replace functional tasks in Dynamics NAV, and that's a big thing. We don't use you can't use PowerShell to get around any validation or do anything. You should do any functional tasks in NAV and you should use PowerShell to do any administration you may have to do. Sometimes you can do things in PowerShell you can't do in NAV, but I definitely recommend taking a look at it. But anyway, that is definitely a brilliant topic for another knowledge hour, I think, so we'll definitely do another one on that in the future. But for those that don't know, it might be worth reading up on PowerShell if you are interested. There are a whole bunch of extension commandlets that we use to create our extensions. For example, exporting our application objects. These are used to create the deltas that we need. Once we compare the object between our exported base and modified base, we can then use that to create our delta, which is the difference between the two. We can then use a new nav app manifest. So you can see why in our magazine we call them nav apps, because all the commandlets look that way. So again, we can use these functions to create our manifest and to create our nav application packages, which is a .navx file. We'll have a quick look at that in a sec as well. We're not going to run through creating a whole extension in today's session because they do take a little bit of time to go through sometimes, but we'll definitely do another knowledge hour where we'll make a small extension and we'll go through each stage with you. So just to let you guys know what an extension package can and can't include, you can add new pages, menu suites, tables and code units. So an extension package can contain new objects, and you can also modify pages, tables and action items. One thing you can't do is you can't modify a code unit. You can't modify, one big difference is that, or one big limitation is that you can't modify any CAL code in an extension, and that's a huge thing to note. It's actually quite a nice thing to note. It's because the fact that we're restricted to not be able to not being able to modify CAL code, whether it's on a table, page or code unit in an extension, means that we're more likely to do it in an event. Because we're more likely to do it in an event, which we can deploy using a new code unit, you'll then make the whole application a lot more easier to maintain and to upgrade. So I wouldn't necessarily say that extensions inherently make NAV easier to upgrade and maintain, but some of the restrictions and limitations they put on you, for example, not being able to run code where you can't see the code, is again really nice. So again, using you can extend the functionality using extensions, using new code units and events that we've just looked at then. But again, it's really worth taking a look. If you were interested in any further, reading or watching in this case, there are two really nice videos on Microsoft's YouTube channel that you should take a look at. The first one obviously goes through creating an extension package from scratch, and the second one is actually deploying and managing those extensions. But at this point in time, let's just jump into NAV. Let's have a quick look at PowerShell and maybe what these extensions could do for us. So, one thing you may have noticed is that on the right hand side we have this big blue shiny box, and this is the Enhanced Information Fact Box, and this is one of our add-ins from the NAV people. It's part of our enablement suite of products, and it lets you manage enhanced fields, store any documents, create any checklists, questionnaires, enhance workflow, etc. It lets you store lots of things against a specific record. Okay, so again, I want a sales order here. So if I actually go into my development environment, I'll just release that filter, and if I go to my sales order, we've got this sales order here. Well, I'll actually jump to for example, we've got this fact box added to all the pages now, for example, purchase order. And just like it is in sales order, which we've made a different modification to, this purchase order is a standard object. We have not modified it at all. It just has Microsoft's modifications in there. But still, we're on a purchase order here, and we still have this big blue shiny box on the right hand side. So why do we have that? If I go to the purchase order itself, I can't see an enhanced information fact box. It doesn't exist, it's not there. So why are we seeing it? Okay. So at the moment I'm in PowerShell, and I've got a few examples here. Here we've got these two, we've got a nav admin tool and this nav model tools. And these PowerShell scripts will they actually run and import all the functions needed to run these commandlets. See, I've just done here. So once I refresh that, I can now perform these functions now I've loaded them into my PowerShell session. So again, I've got one here. So I'm using I'm going to use this one to get all the extensions applied to the service that I'm on at the moment, which is TMP Master Demo. So if I can highlight that in one selection, and that'll take a minute or so, but then it'll tell us everything that's been applied to this service, which is really useful. So you can see we've got 3 things there. So we've got the enhanced information, the workflow extension, and the profiles extensions. So again, you can find out what's been added to your deployments of NAV, or whether it's against a service or a particular tenant through PowerShell. And you can see here that all this information is provided in the manifest that we would have generated. We'll definitely go through creating the manifest next time when we go through creating an extension from start to finish. But again, just so you've got some idea, what I'm actually going to do, I'm actually going to uninstall this NAV app, which is very easy to do. All I've got to do is, because I know the name of it, which is enhanced information, which we can find out here, I can say uninstall NAV app, enhanced information from this server instance. So again, I'm just going to run that. PowerShell's going to go off, and there we go, it's completed. I can tell it's completed because it says completed there, and PowerShell's waiting for us to do something. So if I just go back home and I'll reload that page, you should notice that, there we go, the purchase order has gone back. That's been uninstalled from the application. Yeah. If I go to the purchase orders, again, there's been no change to that object is as it is. If I want to bring that object back, if I want to bring that extension back, again, it's all done in one line of code. So one line of PowerShell script. So I can select this line and run that, and there we go. And go back. So again, it's very nice the fact that with extensions, this could be against just a single tenanted environment or multi-tenanted environment. The ability to be able to have the same objects but with different changes and different tenants is a big plus going forward. So again, I'm just going to go to my purchase orders, and there we go. Very easy to install and uninstall extensions. The whole bunch of commandlets that we can use too. You also have to publish and you have to publish extension before you can install it. But again, if you wanted to completely remove from this database, we would uninstall it and unpublish it. There's a 2-tier process to it. Again, that was just hopefully that's whetted your appetite to find out more. I definitely recommend checking out some of the videos I popped on the previous slide. They are really worthwhile if you want to have an understanding of what extensions are, how they can be used, and just go through some examples of how you create your own. We obviously didn't have time to create our own today, but we'll no doubt do that and further knowledge out going forward. So anyway, I hope that gave you some understanding about it. So yes, thank you very much again today for taking the time out of your day to spend hopefully learning a little bit about Dynamics NAV. I hope you all found it useful. So if you've got any questions, I'll be more than happy to take some. If not, I'd say thank you very much again. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll definitely see you next time. Thank you very much.